everyone. My name is Neha and I welcome you all to the second part of our webinar series, Understanding Bullying, Fostering Safety for Adolescents, brought to you by VIBGYOR Group of Schools. It's wonderful to have you all with us again. At VIBGYOR, we recognize that adolescence can be a time of intense change which impacts them emotionally, socially, and mentally. And through all of this, all they need the most is the space where they feel truly safe, seen, and supported. And that's exactly why we all are here today, to give them that desired space and safety. So in our last session, we explored the basics of bullying. Today we'll be going a little deeper, looking at the experiences adolescents face when they are confronted with bullying. Sometimes as victims, sometimes as bystanders, and sometimes unknowingly as participants. We are glad to have with us again Ms. Poorvasha Mathur, counselling psychologist and child specialist, who over 5 years of experience, Poorvasha brings warmth, humor, and deep insight into her sessions, especially when she's working with adolescents. She has a gift of making complex emotional topics feel approachable and easy to relate to. With her help today, we are going to understand topics like what truly separates teasing and bullying, why children bully, different ways of bullying that shows up, subtle warnings and signs we as parents should watch out for, and a couple of more. And thank you for being here today and taking this step with us. We hope this session today brings assurance, clarity, and practical ideas that you can take with to your home and your heart. And now over to you, Poorvasha.
Thank you, Sneha. Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible to everyone. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. As Neha mentioned, today we all have gathered here to discuss and understand the aspect of bullying and sort of the nitty-gritties related to it when it comes to adolescents and teenagers. So before we get started, I just wanted to do a quick check-in on it's a Friday evening. What's the energy level like? So on a scale of 1 to 10, where are our energy levels? I would really appreciate if all of you can put in your energy levels in the chat box. I am a 8 right now. I'm really excited for this workshop, but at the same time, I had a long day of work, but I'm still feeling a 8. Oh, awesome. Okay, 8, 10, 10, 7. Okay, I love how energetic all of you are, and we're working with great energy levels. 10, 9, 10. Awesome. Okay. Cool. Let's get started with our workshop. I have a presentation prepared for certain topics that I wanted to share with you and discuss with you. So I will go through the presentation and those topics. Meanwhile, feel free to put in your questions, your thoughts, your opinions, your experiences in the chat box, and we'll sort of keep coming back to it, and we'll keep discussing all of those as well. All right. All right. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. All right. Awesome. Okay. Let's get into and get started with understanding basically a little bit of difference between bullying versus teasing. A lot of times it's a very confusing thing for us as adults, but as well as teenagers to understand where does teasing end, where does bully start, what is sort of the boundary, what all things can be considered as bullying versus what all things are just probably harmless teasing and nothing related to bullying. So to make it a little simpler, what I could sort of understand what could be the major difference between bullying and teasing is something which all of us do when it sort of really inculcates humor. We sort of tease our friends, we tease colleagues, we tease basically everyone to develop that relationship. And if we are close to them, we obviously tease each other. But usually teasing is very harmless. The intention of teasing is very playful, to have fun, to just make jokes about each other, and none of the parties are usually feeling threatened by it because the intention is very, very harmless. It's not to harm anyone, but it's very, very playful and it's mutual. That was one of the most important thing. Also, it's mutual. Like sometimes I tease you, sometimes you can tease me, and it works both the ways. Now, when teasing probably becomes one-sided, whereas one person constantly picking up on the other person, when it becomes constant, that only one person is getting picked up on certain things consistently, constantly. And the intention, when the intention sort of shifts from having fun to getting back at someone, or to genuinely harming other person, or genuinely disrespecting them, that is the time when we have crossed the boundary from teasing, and it is considered as bullying. So very broadly speaking, the major difference is bullying is extremely constant, wherein a person is constantly picking up on the other person, very consistent, very repetitive. It's one-sided, where one person is only picking up on the other person, and the other person is pretty much feeling very helpless and can't not able to do much about it. And the intention is to genuinely harm the other person, to make the other person feel hurt or disrespected or shameful. So the intention is no longer playful. That's where any action that is coming from that intention, that is sort of considered as bullying. And with adolescents and teenagers, a lot of times, as much as they are also young, they are not sometimes able to understand the consequences of their actions. This concept of revenge taking is something that is also very common and considered very cool with respect to teenagers. Like, if they feel hurt, or they feel shame, or somebody did something by mistake to them also, but they really felt disrespected or felt bad about it, um, the idea is to get back at the other person or to take revenge. A lot of times it can be the case that they want to take revenge from the other person. And if that intention is from a place of taking revenge, then it can very easily slip into our actions or our words turning into bullying. So that is also something that we need to pay attention to. Now, when we're talking about bullying versus teasing, it's also important for us to also question that why do kids usually bully? Like, when a kid is getting bullied, we usually pay more attention to that because that's more commonly talked about things. But a kid who is considered a bully or who is being a bully, questioning why that child sort of maybe is doing bullying at the first place is also very, very important for us as adults to understand, to help the child better. Now, few of the common things that I could identify that is very, very common with respect to teenagers and adolescents are a couple of these things that I'm going to go through the pointers. But one important thing for us to understand is that a child who is getting bullied, that child is going through stress and overwhelm as much as a child who turns out to be a bully. Like, usually children turns out to be bullied because they are also going through a lot of stress and overwhelm, but they probably don't understand a better way to cope with it, or they probably don't understand how to express themselves better apart from being a bully. uh, in very simple terms, bullying is always a projection of emotions. And this happens with teenagers a lot. Like, if I'm feeling hurt, I want to make sure the other person is also feeling hurt. If I am feeling pain, I want to make sure someone else is also feeling pain. So most of the time, it's a projection of their own emotions. So it's important for us to note that a child who is being a bully is also going through a lot of stress and overwhelm. It's just the way of their expression is very, very different and sometimes very inappropriate. A couple of reasons with respect to why kids probably bully is to fit in a group. Like, fitting in a group, belonging in a group is one of the most important things when we are at adolescent. We want to fit in the cool group, or we want to be a part of a group which is popular. Or a lot of times we just want to be a part of the group. We want to belong somewhere. And in order to do that, and in order to gain that power, or in order to show that, oh, see, we have a lot of power and we have a lot of control, we can end up, or kids can end up, being a bully to someone else, or being a, sort of teasing someone else way too much and way too consistently. Gaining control is something that is not identified very commonly, but it's a very subtle way of expressing from a child's point of view. Like, and when teenagers are going through so many different things, like bodily changes are happening, emotional changes are happening. Even those years in school with respect to academics are very, very different. Like suddenly new subjects are sort of taking place. We are trying to understand so many things. Children tend to feel that they're not able to control a lot of things because most of the things are confusing and chaotic. And they want something to control, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, but some form of control. And a lot of times, kids act as bullies so that they can probably have a little bit of control over someone else. And that really helps them to feel that, oh, at least I'm in charge of something. I might not be in charge of anything else in my life, but at least I'm in charge of having this person or getting something out of this person. That also becomes very, very prominent, and one of the reasons why kids end up bullying someone else. To attract attention, that is also, that might come from a place of a child or an adult or a teenager who's sort of not, doesn't feel that that person is getting a lot of attention. It could be because of a lot of reasons. A lot of times at home, situations are like that they might feel that they're not getting attention at home. In school, probably they might not be getting selected in a lot of things, or just this entire feeling that I am not seen or nobody is paying attention to me. I might not have a lot of friends. In order to attract attention, even that becomes one of the reasons where kids want to bully someone else, because in that way they get the limelight, or in that way at least they're seen. Irrespective of whether it's a good light or a bad light, at least they are being seen. At least people are knowing who this person is, and sometimes feeling scared of this person as well. So that also gives them a lot of attention. That can be one of the reasons. Release overwhelm is mostly very common reason when kids get into bully, because a lot of times when, because of other reasons that are happening around, kids can be very, very overwhelmed and they might not know how to express themselves. And it sort of happens, you can relate it to yourself also as adults also. A lot of times when too many things are happening, we feel very agitated, very angry, and if we don't have a proper outlet, or if we don't know how to express ourselves, maybe we end up yelling at someone else, or maybe we end up hitting someone, or maybe we end up being very rude to someone. That's because we are trying to just regulate our emotional overwhelm. Similarly, with kids, bullying becomes a space where if they are going through stressful situation, or they're very constantly angry about something, showing that anger on someone else, that becomes a way to release their emotions. um, Thinking that this behavior is appropriate. This is specifically targeting kids who are experiencing bullying around them, probably at home or in school or in other spaces, in tuition or any other place where most common example for this is that a lot of households where people communicate by yelling or hitting sort of becomes very common. Since the child is looking at it since they are growing up, it becomes a very common way of expression. So for them, yelling at someone is not inappropriate. It is something that they have seen around them. So this, the behavior of yelling or the behavior of hitting someone is very appropriate for them. They don't understand that it is an inappropriate behavior. So for them, that might not be bullying at all. So that can be one of the reasons why kids end up bullying someone else. And the last part, which also is very, very common specifically to teenagers, is to protect them from getting hurt. Uh, a lot of times when we want to protect ourselves because we are too scared that someone else can hurt us, we end up hurting someone else just so that nobody can come and touch our vicinity. It does happen with teenagers also a lot. Teenagers go through so many different phases or new things in life. It's scary a lot of times for them. And a lot of times, kids adopt this defense mechanism that before anyone else can come and hurt me, before anyone else can come and abuse me, I'll become that person who's abusing other people so that they don't come and attack me. So it's like a bullying becomes like a protective layer for them, that they're protecting themselves from getting hurt. So these are the few common reasons that kids, probably because of that, kids end up being a bully. Similarly, just to pictorially represent the characteristics of someone who is a bully versus someone who is getting bullied. As the fish says, that there's so much going on in my life, and sometimes the only way to feel strong and powerful is to bully someone else. Uh, when things are chaotic around you, you want to feel powerful because apart from that, you're feeling powerless or you feel helpless. You want to gain control, you want to feel strong internally. Therefore, you end up bullying, or kids end up bullying someone else so that they feel strong and powerful. It's a reaction to stress because the child is very stressed for some reason. Lack of understanding. A lot of time teenagers have this complaint with adults that nobody understands me, or you people don't understand what I'm going through. Nobody gets me. That's that feeling. If they have a constant feeling and persistent feeling that nobody gets them, nobody understands them, they can't communicate to anyone, or they can't express to anybody, that feeling can pile up, and then they can sort of end up being a bully to other people. Somebody who is already being bullied, and it can be a cycle. A lot of times, a person is bullying the other person, and that person is bullying someone else because it's a reaction to them getting bullied. So it can be a chain reaction for a lot of kids as well. As we discuss self-preservation to protect ourselves from getting hurt, we end up making that facade and get hurting other people. The other aspect of it, someone who's getting bullied now with teenagers, and nowadays with access of information and social media, we like it or not, kids are getting exposed to information way sooner than we expect them to get exposed to. So the reasons and the things on which people pick on other children, it has also increased to great extent. Religion being one, like, also bullying also happens a lot with respect to what is happening in the society or what is happening around in the world as well. So if kids hear that majority of the people are saying something about certain religion, even in the household or politically as well, they automatically tend to think that, oh, this is something to pick up on other people, or you can sort of harm someone else based on these things. So religion being one of the most common things that happens, kids get bullied on that. A weakness, like, if a child has identified that, oh, if I make fun of this child's handwriting, or if I make fun of this how the child walks or stammer or something like that, then the other kids get really irritated. So if they have identified some weakness that the other child have, picking up on that becomes very easy for them. And so kids get bullied because if they have some weakness, another person knows. Disability, I think that is very self-explained and very common, that kids nowadays, the good part with social media is also that a lot of kids are being more sensitized towards and inclusive towards other kids, more as compared to we were in school. But at the same time, a lot of misinformation is also out there, due to which, if kids are not spoken about with sensitivity, then they can pick on people who are disabled in any form, whether it's physical disability. A lot of times, a lot of kids nowadays are coming up with and very open that they are struggling with learning disability or ADHD or any disability like that. So if other kids know about it, they tend to pick up on the other child. Differences with respect to weight, color, height, language, what language do you speak, even gender. These are very, very common things that kids can pick up on, and sort of the person who's getting bullied to have these characteristics. Now we'll quickly go through the types of bullying. I think most of this is something that all of you might have heard or are aware of, so I'm not going to pay attention to a lot, but just wanted to focus on certain things. Physical bullying, um, that is pretty much common with adolescents, because again, they are experiencing new burst of energy also. So a lot of times, some teenagers end up fighting with other people. Physical bullying involves punching, hitting, destroying someone's property, or just physically asserting dominance over someone else. That is physical bullying. Verbal bullying could be saying mean comments, abusing, someone else, or just saying or picking up on things that, again, as we discussed, are different. Now, verbal bullying is something that's very underrated, to be very honest, specifically in our society, because there are certain things that are very common, or not common but very normalized. Say, for example, making fun of someone's body weight, making fun of someone's appearance, making fun of someone's color, or commenting, not even making fun but even commenting on those things, are extremely normalized. And a lot of times as adults, we don't really acknowledge that these things are inappropriate. But to be very honest, they are very inappropriate. So I wanted to focus on verbal bullying also, because a lot of times as adults, we also might not be able to teach this to our kids. Talking about these things or saying these things or picking up on these things can be inappropriate. So therefore, kids pick up on that because that's what they've heard around them, and then they go ahead and make fun of other kids on the basis of that as well. Social exclusion, again, everybody wants to get fit in a group, but if a group of people are deliberately not letting someone else inside the group, or constantly sort of leaving them outside, not including them, that becomes a part of social exclusion. The last two topics, the last two type of bullying are something I wanted to focus on. One being cyberbullying. Now, cyberbullying is something that has increased a lot in kids. If I have to say, the report in 2020, I think in 20 till 2020 in India, 37% of adolescents have reported that they have experienced cyberbullying. And this is just kids who have reported this. We can't even imagine how many kids probably would have gone under cyberbullying, but not even reported because for various reasons. Now, we like it or not, social media or access to um, internet is something that is a very important part of kids life nowadays. Like, we can't, or kids can't really function without it. The entire system, or even education is also heavily based a lot on social media or just internet in general. And obviously we can't deprive them from that. However, a lot of spaces exist on the internet in the form of social media, in the form of clubs, in the form of group chats like Discord and all of that, which we'll discuss a little later. And picking up, or using online platforms to sort of get back at someone else, to say mean comments, to post threatful comments on someone's profile on their Instagram, or sending them threatful DMs, that becomes a part of cyberbullying. That has increased a lot with respect to the recent times. Similarly, sexual bullying. Sexual bullying is something that is one of the most common types of bullying that adolescents go through. Again, their bodies are changing, they are in exploratory phase. So picking up on someone's sexual orientation, saying or making lewd comments, saying sleazy comments to each other, again using social media platform to sort of send inappropriate text or inappropriate videos or pictures, or taking someone pictures without consent and sort of sending it to them. All of these things fall under sexual bullying. So these are the most common type of bullying that adolescents go through. Cyberbullying and sexual bullying being one of the most common types, and verbal bullying being the most underrated types. Okay. Now we'll sort of discuss a little bit about the warning signs. And these warning signs are applicable to both the kind of kids who are going through bullying and kids who are being a bully as well. And when I'm going to go through these signs, they don't exist individually. So it's not like only one sign exists and that could mean that the child is going through something. Usually, most of the time, it's a combination of multiple of these factors together that can tell us that the child might be going through something. Few of them being inconsistency in usual pattern of behavior. If a child has a usual pattern of behaving, and then suddenly you see there's inconsistency related to it, or the child is not behaving in the same way, there's a lot of difference, there's that drastic differences, that could be one of the signs that maybe something is up. Impact on sleep and appetite is one of the first things that happens when a child is going through stress or anxiety or any overwhelm. Either they will sleep too much or they'll sleep too less. Their appetite will change. Either they'll start eating way too much or they'll start eating way too less. One of the most common things that parents come up with is that, oh, we have no idea, but the child has started eating or has went on a spree of eating junk food. They constantly eat junk food a lot. And a lot of times we relate it to them going through hormonal changes because they're teenagers. But relying on junk food or relying on certain kinds of food, could be one of the signs that the child is undergoing through stress, and eating food in that moment makes everybody feels a little better. So just to regulate themselves, they're relying on eating food. Staying socially aloof, again, when we are going through stress, we are upset or we are annoyed, we are overwhelmed, we don't want to interact a lot. So if a child is sort of choosing to not go outside, not interact with anyone else, not even their family members, or not even people that they used to interact with, that also becomes one of the signs. Increased irritability and anger. Most of the times we relate or we equate this to tantrums in adolescence, that, oh, they're just being a brat, or just they're throwing tantrums, and it's very easily dismissed. We don't really pay attention to the irritability, and we also get irritated as adults. A lot of times, even kids might not know, but a lot of times their irritability and anger might be stemming from, again, stress or something that's bothering them. Avoiding social situations that we discussed, that not want to interact with anyone else. Constant complaints from school about inattention, focus, distraction. I think a lot of us might have heard it from teachers in PTM saying that the child is not paying attention anymore, constantly fidgeting, not staying at one place, constantly distracted, not performing well in academics. And all of these are usually the signs of something the child is getting troubled with. It's not always that the child is weak in studies. Sometimes that's the case, but not always. A lot of times it could be a reaction to stress or something that's bothering them. Frequent fights, again, with adolescents, so much of energy, don't know what to do with it. They might end up in a lot of fights. That is also one of the signs that maybe something is troubling them. Spending too much time on gadget. This, as much as it's a very normal thing and basic thing now with teenagers, a lot of times, and this is again a sign that gets unnoticed, or even if we notice, we again equate it to them just being a teenager or being lazy or just being a brat. But spending time on gadgets could also be one of the reasons that could have one of the signs that the child is going through something, because it's a easy distraction, as similar to staying aloof. When child is aloof, don't want to interact with someone else, staying with a gadget or just doing something constantly with the gadget is an easy way of distracting from others and distracting from our own emotions. So a lot of time kids spend way too much time on gadgets because they don't want to interact with someone else. They don't want to just go through what they are feeling, or they don't want to pay attention to what they are feeling. Not engaging in things that they used to enjoy, pretty much similar to what we discussed. Decreased confidence and self-esteem can come up with a child who's getting bullied because they are constantly getting picked on, they're constantly made feel shameful, disrespected. Obviously, their confidence will go down, their self-esteem will go down. Indecisiveness, because the child might be going through a lot of confusion, the child might not be able to make all small decisions also. Like if you ask the child that what you want to eat today, maybe they might not be able to make a decision. And we as adults, we might get irritated and annoyed by these things, but we might not pay attention to that this could be a sign, or there could be a reason probably that why this child is being so indecisiveness. But with adolescence, indecisiveness also becomes a very, very prominent thing. And then self-harm. Self-harm, again, is something that has increased a lot in teenagers for various reasons. And I think we're going to discuss about self-harm a little bit more in the next slide, but that is also definitely a very, very out there warning sign. Then apart from all of these things, just three common things, like extremely common things that I wanted to just discuss with all of you that adolescents face is, again, online bullying. We have discussed how online bullying is something that is extremely common now. And uh, kids now, online bullying is something that kids are also very scared with sharing with any adult, because online, first of all, as adults, we resent kids to be on a social media platform. We are always very skeptical that, oh, what are they doing on these Instagram, or what are they doing on Discord? So anyway, there is a distance in communication. Like, kids don't want to communicate or express anything what's happening on social media with adults, with their parents, because they have a feeling that parents don't understand. Even if they understand, they get yelled at and all of that. So a lot of times when kids are going through, somebody's bullying the kids online, they end up not telling anybody because they are too scared, they are too ashamed, that if they tell someone, if they tell their parents, the parents will get back at them only, that why were you using this at the first place, or why were you here at the first place. However, that is one of the most common thing. And now, because the access of social media to everybody is became very, very common. To Again, to give you an example, recently, I think it's so common, like every child that I deal with has some or the other experience of online bullying, or their friends are going through online bullying. A lot of times kids are not able to even understand whether this is bullying or not, because they don't have anybody to talk to about it. So make sure, I wouldn't say make sure, but this is mostly a suggestion that uh, be a little bit more involved with respect to what kind of platforms the kids are using. To combine online bullying a little bit with sexual bullying is, this one concept of, boys locker room is something that extremely, extremely common, and I think probably some of you would have heard it. And to be very honest, it exists in very different forms, on any of these online platforms, Discord being one of the most common platforms that teenagers use, because your name is anonymous. Like, nobody will know who you are because you can put your name as anything else, and the identity is anonymous. So the room for bullying each other or doing inappropriate things to each other just increases a lot. Now, boys locker room is something like, all of us, when we are teenagers, we are curious about a lot of things, and a lot of sexual things as well. We talk about, like, girls end up talking about boys end up talking about girls, different kinds of genders talking about different people, and that's extremely, extremely common and age appropriate. However, since kids most of the time don't have an adult to talk to about these things, they don't have a clarity of how much of it is appropriate versus how much of it is not appropriate. So they make these groups within each other, and then they talk about things, and then they share. Boys locker room is a place where, a lot of boys will get together and they will share inappropriate text, inappropriate pictures, inappropriate videos of someone else in their group. And a lot of times, a lot of blackmail and threatening also happens through online platforms as well. You can go into someone's DM, threaten them that, hey, I have your picture, this and that. And a lot of this is extremely, extremely common. Self-harm. Now, self-harm, I want to focus a little bit more, is as much as self-harm has increased a lot in teenagers, um, from an adult's point of view, when we look at a child or an adolescent doing self-harm, a lot of times we shame them, or we disregard it, that, oh, you are too young, you don't have issues, you don't have any issues, what are you doing, what is this behavior? And a lot of times we feel that they're doing it probably for attention, or they're just doing it for getting that limelight, or just they're doing it for fun. Now, it's never for fun. Like, imagine, why will a child sort of harm themselves or feel pain physically, go down that road just for fun? That doesn't seem very appropriate reason. uh, to very broadly put in, though there are multiple reasons for a child to do self-harm, most common emotions that a child might be feeling is when you're feeling very out of control, when you're feeling extremely confused, when you feel very helpless. That's when children resort to doing self-harm. Because again, when you're emotionally so hurt or you're feeling pain, transferring it into physical pain just makes it feel a little better. And that's why a lot of kids, when they are feeling too confused or very helpless, they feel like they don't have anybody to go to. If they go to their parents, the parents will scold them. If they go to their teachers, the teachers will scold them. So they don't have anybody to go to. They end up probably indulging in self-harm because that's the only way they can cope with things. So again, self-harm also is one of the most common things that adolescents face. All right, now we come to what can parents do? Now, to start with saying that, first of all, it's extremely difficult and overwhelming for parents at the first place to deal with something like that. Like, first of all, dealing with a teenager itself is just, I don't know, just very difficult. So it's awesome how parents sort of can deal with that, because I don't know how parents deal with that. It's really difficult because, again, to understand them and when you're a teenager, it's a very common thing that I don't want to share anything with my parents. That filtration just comes into a lot. That there are certain things I just don't want to share with my parents, even though my parents are very nice and they might be really supportive. There are certain things that kids just don't want to share with with the parents, and that gap automatically exists. And to sort of help your kid with that gap, it can become really difficult. Now, couple of things that really help from a parent's point of view is number one, identifying and reflection. Like as we discussed about the warning signs, if as parents, if as adults, we are mindful of these warning signs and we are aware of these warning signs, and we can pick up on it. Like if we can see a child and we observe and we see that these are some warning signs that the child is showing, that is one of the greatest thing, because you are able to identify at least that the child needs help. Because a lot of times child might be showing these warning signs, but they might not know that they are struggling so much. So as adults, for us to pick up on that and identify uh, sort of eases the first space, at least where we know that okay, the child is struggling and we need to intervene. The second point, taking a moment and reflecting on our own behavior. Like most of the time, kids reflect or learn behavior from the surroundings itself, whether it's at home, primarily home and school being two places. A lot of times we might be saying certain things or we might be behaving in certain way and we might not be very mindful of it, but kids pick up on it and then they start to behave in the same way. So maybe sometimes just reflect and take a moment and reflect, what kind of language are we using around the child? What kind of opinions are we sharing around the child? What kinds of behaviors are we demonstrating around the child amongst each other? And could it be a possibility that the reason the child is behaving this way might be coming from something that they have learned from us? Because that can happen very often. Uh, Similarly, uh, a little bit of understanding and keeping a tab on what kind of content they are exposed to. All the kids will be exposed to social media and we can't do anything about it. That's okay. But if we are a little aware of what kind of content are they exposed to, what are they consuming, how much it's okay for them to consume it, we'll also have an understanding that where are they learning from. Because even content is something that is so heavily consumed by kids nowadays, and they learn a lot from that also, and they try to behave a lot from the content and they are consuming also. So having a little bit of idea of what kind of content they're assuming, even if we don't understand it, that's okay, but just having a little bit of awareness, that might also help you to make understanding of what the child might be going through or why the child might be behaving in that way. Express emotion, something which is again very underrated with amongst all of us. We are not very we are not taught very well how to express emotions. Therefore, even our kids, they really struggle with expressing emotions, specifically adolescents, because they're experiencing so many varied type of emotions. It's too confusing and it's very overwhelming. So probably if we are able to build a little bit of space where we are expressing emotions a little bit more with each other and teaching our kids also to express their emotions, that really helps us to know what is happening in their life, even if they don't tell you experiences or stories or events, but just telling you that I feel really sad, I feel really hurt, I feel really angry, will at least give us some sense of understanding that what is happening with the child. Most of the kids also don't feel comfortable sharing their experiences or emotions because they feel too shamed or too scared that, my emotions don't matter, or should I be feeling these emotions, because they're not very comfortable with it. So if as adults we can probably help them understand that they don't have to feel ashamed to feel any emotion, they don't have to feel scared to share emotions with their parents, that can also do wonders. One of the tools that I use with my uh, adolescent clients and even their parents is, emotions can be very confusing. So this is something called an emotion wheel that I share with them, and it has multiple emotions names. A lot of time just sitting with this wheel and pinpointing what were you feeling, different emotions, that can really help you and the child to sort of have a perspective that, oh, what all am I feeling, what am I capable of feeling. And that is a good conversation starter also. Like if your child pointed out on the, oh, I was feeling disrespected, you can always have a question that, oh, what made you feel that way, what happened. And they can start having conversations with you and vice versa. So this is something that really helps. Little bit of strategies is, a lot with teenagers. One thing that's always a little confusing is we expect them to behave as adults for certain situations, but for certain situations we always tell them that you are a kid, so you can't do this. And that can be very, very confusing, and that can also create a lot of room for blaming them. Now, when a kid is sort of experiencing something and expressing themselves, one thing is to probably start with not blaming them immediately. Even though inside your head you're very frustrated, you're furious, and you want to blame them, probably just keep it to yourself in that moment and don't say it aloud to them, because they might anyway will be feeling very guilty, or they might be feeling very ashamed of it. So probably keeping a blame a little aside, even if a child is turned out to be a bully, or if you got to know your child is bullying someone, maybe before blaming them, sitting with them, trying to understand why they did what they did at the first place, what made them choose to behave in this way at the first place, to go in the depth and understanding the why of it without blaming. That might really help us as adults to understand what the child is going through, where they're coming from. Having a judgment free conversation, like, probably you can keep the judgments a little aside for a while. Maybe it can come back later, but in that moment, in that vulnerable space, having a conversation where the child can feel that, my parents are genuinely there to listen to me, and they wouldn't blame me for anything even if I made a mistake, that might really help the child to express. And once the child is expressed, then obviously you can scold them when it's required. Like, scolding is also something extremely required at times. You can always have a conversation about impact and consequences, that this is what you did and this is what the consequence of it is going to be. So always have a conversation with them, that what impact can your actions have and what consequences your actions can have. Maybe a lot of time teenagers don't understand the gravity of it, that how deeply, or how, what's the gravity of their actions. They probably do it in the fluke and they think it's really cool, but probably they don't go into the consequences. So in those moments, you can go ahead, school them a little bit. Also teach them that this is what your consequences, your actions did, and that's not okay and it's not appropriate. But understanding why the child did it at the first place would be the key aspect to focus on here. Then little bit of solution or resource building is taking it seriously and believing it. We as parents a lot of times dismiss adolescents like nobody's business. We don't take their experiences seriously. We don't take their stories seriously. We don't take their emotions seriously, and that is very very dismissive, because if we keep doing that, the child will obviously not come to us and talk to us because they don't feel any point of doing it. So if a child is sharing something with you, take it seriously and believe them at least of in that moment. Validate their emotions. If they're feeling a certain way, no emotion is good or bad. Actions can be good or bad, but no emotion is good or bad. So if they're feeling a certain way, try to validate them. Um, uh, with adolescents, of course, a lot of times we have a tendency to tell them what to do, what not to do, as much as it's required. When you are sort of probably building up a solution for them, in the sense what can they do when they are getting bullied, what can they do when they are a bully, try involving them and making a part of them as well in that entire solution focused building thing, rather than just telling them that you should do this, because then they will also have a sense of accountability there, because they are also equally involved in it. So that really helps. Teaching them the concept of safe people. A lot of times as parents, we put a lot of pressure on the child that you have to share everything with us only. And a lot of times, of course, they're not comfortable with sharing everything with you. Also, too much pressure for the parent to listen to everything. And in that case, assigning certain safe people. That could be a teacher in school, that could be some friends, that could be a cousin, anybody who you think also is safe for the child to have a conversation with. Have that conversation with the child that, if you don't want to talk to parents, it's fine. You can go to this safe person or you can go to this safe person. So assigning certain safe people wherein the child can go to and talk to, that really also helps as an outlet. Now, addressing the last part of dealing with all of this can really take a toll on the parents' mental health also. And couple of things that I wanted to mention in this is check your well-being as well. Like, check your well-being as in when things are happening, when you're getting to know so many things. Take a moment, maybe don't have a conversation with your child in that moment, because obviously when we are annoyed, angry, we are very agitated and we put everything on the other person. Take a little bit of breaths, have some water, try to relax a little bit, and once you feel like you are in a better and calmer space, then go ahead and have conversations with kids. um, Things sometimes can be really confusing and tricky. Um, Seek help. When I seek help, probably don't hesitate in having conversation with probably other fellow parents or a friend that you have, even a teacher at school, because they will be able to relate to what you are going through a lot more, and having someone else's perspective, that also really helps. So things can be confusing, go talk to someone. If you need a professional help, you can always have a conversation with a therapist also, and that's absolutely all right. uh, you're not supposed to know everything. As parents, we keep this pressure on ourselves that, oh, we are parents, so we should be knowing everything or we should know how to figure out everything. No, you're not supposed to know everything, and that's okay. Even you are learning a lot of new things. Uh, and combined with the last point of acknowledging the generation gap, there's a huge generation gap between parents and kids, and that's a very realistic thing, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if we are able to acknowledge it, that makes our job a little bit easier, because there would be multiple things that as parents you might not understand or you might not like or you might not be able to comprehend, and that's okay. But just to acknowledge that something like this exists in their life, it doesn't exist in my life, I don't even understand it, but because it exists in their life, I need to acknowledge the presence of it. That is really helpful. And I think most of the time teenagers just need an acknowledgement, that they don't expect parents to understand each and everything. They just want parents to acknowledge that these things are a part of their life, and that's about it. So you're not supposed to understand and comprehend everything. There's way too much information overload on internet also. If you try to learning something, that's great, but also don't expose yourself with so much of information. It can be very, very overwhelming. Talk to someone who probably knows a little bit better in that area. Talk to your kids also. A lot of time kids also can sort of teach you a lot of things that we don't know or we might not understand. But overall, at the end of the day, keep your well-being also in check, because if that's not there, then we won't be able to support our child as well. All right, I'm gonna pause here. We are done with the presentation. I'm gonna pause here for questions. If there are any questions, any thoughts, and we can go ahead with that.
Participants, please feel free to put on your questions in the chat box for Poorvasha. Poorvasha, we have a question here.
Yes.
How do we ensure that the school life of the child doesn't suffer if they are facing bullying in school?
Uh, I honestly, very realistically, I'm not sure if that can be the case, because, all of these things are a part of the child's life. So if something is happening in the school with the child, it would be very likely that it is going to impact their academics or, their behavior even after they come back at school, because they every day have to go back to school in the same space. So I don't think so. The idea here would be to differentiate between these two things. Probably we can help the child navigate how can they manage that better, and probably intervening what is bothering the child or what kind of bullying is happening in school to minimize it, so that the school becomes a safe space for the child as well.
Right. Thank you, Purusha. Next question is, when should we let the child handle the bullying in school, and when is the time when we should intervene?
That's a very interesting question that all of us sort of really deal with. I think, to be very honest, with teenagers specifically, uh, the focus is a little bit more on making them independent and accountable to deal with these situations till most of the point. Until you as parents, you are able to identify that the things are way too extreme, that the child is not able to handle by themselves. But the idea here is to make the child as equipped as possible to handle it by themselves. So maybe in school, if this is happening or with anybody is happening, the child can handle it or sort of go through it by themselves. But at home, as parents, you can just provide the child with a lot of support and a lot of strategies as well as to how to handle it better. Uh, that might really help the child to feel equipped as well as supported by the parents.
A participant is asking, at what point does conflict between students become bullying?
I think conflicts between students with adolescents, of course, there's a lot of conflicts that can happen. I think if it's, again, it's very consistent, like constantly the conflict is again and again happening very frequently, like the frequency of it is a lot, and the intention. Like once the conflict is resolved, if it's happening again and again, there has to be the reason for it, or there has to be an intention that why that conflict is existing again. And if we feel that, or if we identify that, the intention behind it is to actually harm the other person, or the intention behind is to genuinely bug the other person, that is something that we can refer as bullying, which we need to intervene.
Do we have any further questions for Poorvasha? Oh, there's one. So most of the times, a participant says, most of the time child does not want us to reach out to the teachers due to fear of retaliation or embarrassment. But when the teachers are not treating their complaints seriously, how do we handle such cases?
Okay. Yeah, I do agree with the first part, that a lot of time kids don't want us to reach out to teachers because maybe they're not very sensitive to it, or they blame the kids as well. Um, Honestly, in that situation, one of the things that we can try as parents is having a conversation with the teacher in a little inclusive way, wherein explaining the teacher that, hey, this is what the issue is, and the child is very scared that this won't be handled as very sensitive matter. Expressing your opinions very honestly, that might help. But at the same time, the con of it is that it's a very personal thing also. Like a lot of times, some teachers probably, unfortunately, are not very sensitive to it. And that's a very personal thing. That's a very personality thing. But nowadays, most of the schools are trying to make teachers also aware of these things. So you can always talk to some authority, if not the teacher, if that specific teacher you think is not sensitive. I'm pretty sure there would be some authority figure in the school, whether it's principal, whether it's the counselor in school, and probably having a conversation with them to understand how to deal with it better might help in this situation.
Very well said. Yes, yes, I completely agree, Poorvasha. Teachers do play a very important role in child's life. In fact, I have a question here. So, at times, I mean, in my family, I've seen teachers themselves are, at times knowingly, unknowingly involved in, labeling or naming children on something or the other, which can be, called as bullying. So, how do we handle such situation?
Yeah, that's true. To be very honest, bullying by teachers is also something that kids experience a lot. In that case, to be very honest, I would say that it becomes a responsibility of the system in school as well to sort of do workshops or to sort of training programs for the teachers as well, so that they can become more inclusive and sensitive. I mean, teachers are also human beings. They are also, coming from so many different backgrounds. And as human beings, it becomes impossible for us to learn everything. So even they need a little bit of guidance and they need a little bit of sensitivity. So if school can itself hold that system and provide resources to teachers so that they can learn better, I think that would do wonders to the kids as well.
Absolutely. Very point taken, Poorvasha. Very well. Uh, okay, there's a participant who's asking for your Instagram handle, Poorvasha.
I am unfortunately not on Instagram officially, but you can search me on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn, so I hope that works.
I hope the answer is Miss Suhani Shah. Any further questions for Miss Poorvasha, participants? Okay, let's do the formalities. Here we come to the end of this wonderful session. Thank you so much. A heartfelt thank you to you, Ms. Poorvasha Mathur, for walking us through such complex and emotional topic with such compassion and clarity. Your stories, reflections, and your practical tips have helped us and truly made a difference. And to all of my participants who have joined us, thank you so much. Whether you have attended both my sessions or just this one, I hope these conversations have helped you reflect, feel more equipped, and above all, reminded you that you're not alone in this journey. We are with you. If you have any further questions or you wish to speak with us, please feel free to reach out to us on +91 600 3700. And before you go, we would love to hear your thoughts. Please take a moment to share your feedback to the link provided. This will help us curate such informative sessions for you in the future. Thank you once again for joining and being part of this conversation. Have a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you. Take care.